There are lots of different ways in which South Africa came to 1990 and then 1994. And one of the quite important ways in which it came to it was through the politics of the first half of the 1970s. That's a period in which Steve Biko leads and forms the Black Consciousness movement, which poses an enormous challenge to the society. It's a period in which the new trade union movement begins and develops, and it's a period in which large numbers of particularly white students on the campuses develop a radicalism and an activism that is quite important. For reasons that are not clear, I've always had a very good memory, and it's one of the reasons why, to some extent, I was almost selected by my cohort to write this book. They'd always said that I was the one who remembered best. Part of this memory writing was exceptionally difficult and exceptionally painful as well. Not only because of personal experiences, but because of experiences of what happened to other people. The one is a name you'll know, Steve Biko. Critical and important not only in terms of the black campuses, but in terms of the challenge that is mounted to students on the white campuses. Because it's that challenge and dealing with that challenge that really opens the way to the development of a radicalism. That's one character. A second character, less well known, is Neville Curtis. He was the president of NUSAS at the same time as Steve Biko was the president of SASO, the South African Students' Organization. They actually worked closely together, even at the time as SASO was starting to split from NUSAS. And Neville Curtis was probably the single most important influence in developing a radicalism on the NUSAS-affiliated campuses that went beyond what had been a relatively discreet and fairly comfortable liberalism of a previous generation. And the third big figure is Rick Turner, and it is his thinking, his ability to challenge ways of seeing, and his ability to make political philosophy a living challenge and a living way of being in the world that is absolutely critical both to the Black Consciousness movement and to the radical rights student movement. Rick's great lesson to all of us who knew him was that part of being radical was to be able to imagine an idea of things being different, to not get caught into the idea that everything has to be the way it appears to be. At the launch of this book, the first launch of it took place at Wits, and a number of the younger students were there, and they were asking very interesting questions. They were saying, our student body seems relatively apathetic about the politics of the time. What can you say to us about how you get them to be more involved? And I had to smile and say, that sounds exactly like me talking in 1970 or 1971. I think the questions are there. The questions are there amongst a new group of young people who believe our society is losing its way and are trying to find ways of engaging on the basis of a more radical critique. University is probably the most important time of your educational life because it's the one opportunity where you can be totally immersed in a process. You can be learning, you can be participating, you can be acting, you can be experiencing, you can be an activist, you can be taking initiatives, you can be exploring new sorts of lifestyles and new ways of being, you can be developing your philosophies and your politics. It is probably the period of life in which that is most likely to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then it may never happen again. The message to students would be immerse yourself and participate in every single thing that you can as a process of your learning process and your engagement. Don't be narrow. Don't just do your course. Don't just participate in your one club. Don't just come to lectures and then go home. Immerse yourself in a total experience, as we were lucky enough to be able to do in the 1970s.